Imagine the chilling reality of an extended medieval siege. Picture yourself confined within cold, unyielding stone walls for months on end. These formidable fortifications, once symbols of protection, slowly transform into a claustrophobic prison. The world outside fades into a distant memory, replaced by the immediate, pressing concerns of survival. Days blur into a monotonous cycle of anxious waiting and dwindling hope. The air grows thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, stale food, and the ever-present dampness of ancient stone. Every creak, every distant shout could signal a renewed assault or another long day of gnawing uncertainty. It was a profound test of human spirit and physical endurance, a stark existence stripped bare of comforts. The daily sustenance under such dire circumstances was a grim affair indeed. Survival often depended on a meager diet of bland gruel, perhaps made from oats or barley, providing minimal comfort. Alongside this, aged cheese, hard and intensely flavored, sometimes spotted with mold, would be a common feature. Salted meat, preserved to last, was another staple, yet it was incredibly tough and excessively salty, requiring hours of soaking before it could even be considered edible. Fresh fruits and vegetables were luxuries long forgotten, leading to the silent creep of malnutrition and diseases like scurvy. This unrelenting, unappetizing fare would weigh heavily on the morale of any defender, a constant, visceral reminder of their precarious situation. Many would surely contemplate surrender when faced with such culinary torment day after day. This essay endeavors to unravel the sophisticated tapestry of survival woven within besieged medieval castles. We will journey back in time to uncover the clever food storage strategies that formed the bedrock of their endurance. We shall also investigate the ingenious preservation hacks employed to extend the life of precious foodstuffs, often turning perishable goods into long-lasting sustenance. Furthermore, the very design of the castles themselves played a crucial role. We will explore the architectural features specifically engineered to protect and maintain supplies against decay and enemy action. It was this combination of careful planning, practical knowledge, and structural ingenuity that kept defenders fed and fighting when enemies surrounded their imposing stone walls, hoping to starve them into submission. This essay will reveal the smart methods used in medieval times. We explore clever food storage plans that helped castles endure long periods of attack. We will also look at special preservation techniques for keeping food edible for many months. Furthermore, we investigate how castle designs themselves were ingeniously crafted to help keep defenders fed. This knowledge was absolutely vital when enemies surrounded a fortress, cutting off all outside supplies. These carefully developed strategies were the key to survival against overwhelming odds. They truly show the great ingenuity and resilience of people facing dire threats and constant uncertainty. Understanding these crucial elements helps us appreciate how castle garrisons managed to hold out for so long. It was a continuous, desperate battle against hunger and despair within those imposing stone walls. The cornerstone of any medieval castle's ability to withstand a lengthy siege was its supply of cereal grains. These humble yet essential foodstuffs formed the very foundation of the defender's diet, providing the bulk of calories needed to sustain life and fighting spirit. Lords and castellans understood that without an ample reserve of grains, their chances of holding out against a determined enemy were slim. Therefore, meticulous planning went into accumulating truly vast quantities. We are not talking about a few sacks tucked away. Rather, these were colossal stockpiles, sometimes enough to feed hundreds of soldiers and castle inhabitants for an entire year. This foresight was crucial, as resupply during a siege was often impossible, making the initial hoard the lifeline of the fortress. The most commonly stored grains were barley, rye, and wheat. Each had its own advantages and was cultivated widely across medieval Europe. Barley was particularly hardy, able to grow in poorer soils, and it provided a dense filling component for bread and pottage. Rye was similarly robust and often used for dark, coarse breads that, while not luxurious, were incredibly sustaining. Wheat, generally considered the most desirable grain for finer breads, was also stored, though its cultivation could be more demanding. These grains were typically harvested in the late summer or early autumn. The period immediately following the harvest was a critical time for castle provisioning, as fresh supplies were brought within the protective walls, ensuring the larder was full before winter or any potential conflict. The process of stocking the castle granaries was an immense undertaking, often involving the entire local community. Villagers living on the castle's lands frequently paid a portion of their harvest as a tithe or tax to their lord. This system ensured a regular influx of grains into the castle's stores. Carts laden with sacks of threshed grain would trundle towards the castle gates, a visible sign of the ongoing preparations for security. Inside, designated officials would oversee the careful storage of these precious supplies. This annual rhythm of harvesting and storing was deeply ingrained in medieval life, a cycle directly linked to survival, especially for those tasked with defending a strategic stronghold. The collective effort underscored the importance of these staples. Imagine the sheer volume required. Some historical records and archaeological findings from 12th century strongholds indicate that they aimed to keep enough cereal on hand to feed hundreds of individuals for a full calendar year. This meant dedicating significant space within the castle's architecture solely for grain storage. These were not afterthoughts, but integral parts of the castle's design. The ability to store such immense quantities speaks volumes about the logistical capabilities and the understanding of siege warfare prevalent during this period. The sight of a well-filled granary would have been a source of immense reassurance to the garrison, a tangible promise that they could endure what was to come, at least for a considerable time. Beyond bread, the vital role of legumes. While grains formed the bulk of the diet, medieval strategists knew that a varied or at least supplemented food supply was beneficial for both health and morale. Dried legumes such as beans and peas played a crucial supporting role in the besieged castle's larder. These humble vegetables were powerhouses of nutrition, offering a significant source of protein, which was especially important when fresh meat became scarce or was heavily rationed. Their inclusion in the diet helped to create more substantial meals, adding necessary calories and nutrients that grains alone might not sufficiently provide over very long periods of confinement. This thoughtful diversification of stored food was a key element in maintaining the garrison's strength and resilience. The nutritional contribution of dried beans and peas was particularly significant. In an era where the understanding of vitamins and balanced diets was rudimentary by modern standards, the inherent goodness of legumes was nonetheless appreciated. They provided essential amino acids and fiber, contributing to a feeling of fullness and sustaining energy levels for soldiers engaged in demanding physical activities such as patrolling walls or repelling attacks. When combined with grains in stews or pottages, legumes helped to create a more complete nutritional profile. This was vital for staving off the worst effects of malnutrition that could easily plague a besieged population subsisting on a monotonous and limited range of foodstuffs for months on end. Beyond their nutritional value, dried legumes offered immense practical advantages for long-term storage, making them ideal for siege conditions. Once properly dried, beans and peas were remarkably resistant to spoilage, far more so than many other foodstuffs. They could be stored for extended periods, sometimes for years, without significant degradation in quality, provided they were kept dry and protected from pests. Their compact nature also meant that a large quantity of nutritional value could be stored in a relatively small space. This was a critical consideration within the finite confines of a castle, where every square foot of storage was precious and had to be used efficiently to maximize the duration of potential resistance. The addition of beans and peas to the daily fare, however simple, also offered a welcome, albeit slight, variation from an otherwise relentlessly grain-based diet. While siege rations were never intended to be gourmet, any change in texture or flavor could provide a small boost to morale. These legumes could be soaked and boiled, added to soups, or ground into a coarse flour to supplement bread. Their versatility, combined with their excellent storage properties and nutritional content, made dried beans and peas an indispensable component of the medieval siege pantry. They represented a smart and efficient way to bolster food security when the castle gates were slammed shut against a hostile world, ensuring the defenders had more than just bread to rely upon. guarding the hoard granary design and stock rotation. The immense stockpiles of grain and legumes were only useful if they could be preserved effectively until needed. Therefore, the design and location of granaries within a medieval castle were matters of utmost strategic importance. These were not just any storage rooms, they were carefully constructed to protect their precious contents from the primary enemies of stored food, moisture, pests, and excessive heat. Granaries were often ingeniously carved directly into the solid stone foundations of the keep or a strong tower. Alternatively, they might be purpose-built structures located within the most secure part of the castle, such as the inner bailey, heavily guarded and less accessible to enemy attacks or sabotage. This careful placement ensured the food supply was as safe as the defenders themselves. Architectural features played a vital role in maintaining the quality of the stored provisions. Many granaries were built on raised stone pillars or saddle stones. This elevation served a dual purpose. It allowed air to circulate underneath the floor, helping to keep the grain dry and cool, and crucially, it acted as a significant deterrent to rats and mice. These rodents could decimate a grain store with alarming speed if allowed access. The walls of the granary were thick, often made of stone, which helped to regulate temperature, keeping the interior cooler in summer and preventing freezing in winter. Good ventilation was also considered, often through small, shuttered openings placed high up, allowing damp air to escape without letting in rain or too much light. The replenishment of these vital stores was a continuous process, not just a one-time effort before a siege. As previously mentioned, villagers often contributed through tithes, bringing portions of their harvest to the castle each year. This regular inflow of fresh supplies was critical. Castle stewards or storekeepers who were responsible for managing these provisions had to be meticulous in their record keeping. They understood the importance of using the oldest stock first to ensure that nothing sat for so long that it became rancid or infested. This principle of first in, first out was fundamental to efficient food management and was essential for maximizing the longevity of the entire stockpile, a practice that required diligence and careful organization. This systematic rotation of stock was the key to preventing catastrophic losses due to spoilage. Old grain was gradually used for daily consumption by the garrison or for brewing ale, making way for the newer harvest. Before new grain was added, granaries would ideally be cleaned thoroughly to remove any lingering pests or mold spores. By constantly rotating the old stock into active use and replenishing with fresh supplies, castle administrators ensured that the provisions remained in the best possible condition for the longest possible time. This careful stewardship meant that if a siege did occur, the defenders would be drawing upon food that was as fresh and wholesome as circumstances allowed, significantly improving their chances of outlasting their attackers. The smokehouse and salt barrel turning livestock into lasting provisions. Meat preservation was an absolutely vital skill in medieval times, especially for castles facing the threat of a prolonged siege. Fresh meat, while highly valued, would spoil quickly, rendering it useless within days. For a garrison of soldiers and other castle inhabitants, a reliable source of protein and fat was essential for maintaining strength and morale over many arduous months. Therefore, converting perishable livestock into durable, long-lasting provisions was not just a convenience but a cornerstone of defensive planning. Without effective meat preservation techniques, a castle's ability to endure a lengthy encirclement would be severely compromised, as its defenders would soon lack the critical nutrients meat provided, weakening their capacity to fight. The process often began in the late fall, a strategically chosen time for several important reasons. Cooler autumn temperatures naturally aided in the preservation process by slowing down bacterial growth during the initial stages of butchering and curing. Furthermore, livestock such as pigs, sheep, and cattle would typically be at their fattest after a summer of grazing, maximizing the yield of meat and valuable animal fat. The slaughter of these animals was a significant undertaking, requiring skilled butchers and ample space. For a large castle expecting to feed hundreds, this meant processing a considerable number of animals, transforming them from living assets into a future food supply carefully prepared to last through the leanest of times. Once the animals were butchered, the primary methods for preservation were salting and smoking, techniques honed over centuries. Salt was the key ingredient, a precious commodity in itself. It worked by drawing moisture out of the meat through osmosis, creating an environment where spoilage-causing bacteria could not thrive. Large quantities of salt were rubbed into the cuts of meat, or the meat was packed in barrels layered with salt. Complementing salting, smoking involved hanging the salted meats in a dedicated smokehouse. This structure, usually located near the castle kitchen for practical reasons, allowed smoke from slow-burning fires to permeate the meat, further drying it, adding flavor, and depositing natural chemicals that inhibited bacterial and fungal growth. Section 2. Casting the net wider. Preserving fish for lean times. Castles near rivers, lakes, or coastlines often preserved fish to supplement their protein stores. Fish provided a welcome alternative to red meat and grain, boosting morale during long sieges. Preservation methods included salting and drying similar to meat. Oily fish like herring and cod were commonly salted and packed in barrels. Air drying was popular in dry, breezy regions. Herring and cod were mainstays, while freshwater fish like pike and perch were also preserved. Fishing and preservation were crucial logistical tasks in the castle's food strategy. Section 3. The austere table consuming and valuing preserved meats. Preserved meats, like salted pork or dried cod, were extremely hard and salty. Preservation aimed to prevent spoilage, not create culinary delights. Extensive preparation was needed to make these meats palatable. Soaking in fresh water for hours or days was common to reduce saltiness. Despite their unappetizing nature, these meats provided essential calories and nutrients. Knights and soldiers relied on this sustenance to maintain strength. The nutritional value of preserved meats was fundamental to the castle's resistance. Section 1. The enduring value of dairy cheese for the siege. Fresh milk spoiled quickly, but cheesemaking extended its utility. Cheesemaking was crucial for converting milk into a long-lasting food source. Villagers milked cows, goats, or sheep until the first frost. Milk was curdled using rennet, then curds were pressed into molds. Cheese wheels were aged in cool, dark cellars. Subterranean cellars offered stable temperatures ideal for cheese maturation. These conditions allowed cheese to last for months or even years. Cheese was a compact, nutrient-dense food for siege survival. Maintaining safe hydration was crucial during a siege. Ale was a vital necessity, safer than untreated water. Castles often had brewing facilities for a consistent ale supply. Small beer was brewed with low alcohol content for regular consumption. Ingredients included malted barley, water, and sometimes hops. Ale was stored in large wooden casks in cool, dark cellars. Proper storage prevented spoilage and maintained quality. Managing ale inventory was essential for long-term survival. Strict rationing was essential once the siege began. The castle steward oversaw food distribution under the lord's authority. Survival depended on disciplined management of resources. Food distribution was rarely equitable, reflecting medieval hierarchy. Knights and nobles received larger, better quality rations. Foot soldiers and servants had to make do with less. This disparity was a harsh reality of siege life. Managing food stores was a critical responsibility. Stewards or clerks maintained detailed ledgers of all provisions. Accurate records were essential for long-term survival. Ledgers tracked quantities, storage locations, and acquisition dates. This information allowed for informed ration adjustments. Identifying potential shortages enabled limited contingency planning. Detailed oversight was crucial for enduring a prolonged siege. Castle architecture played a key role in survival during a siege. Defensive walls and design elements preserved vital resources. Secure water sources were essential for drinking and hygiene. Deep wells and cisterns provided reliable water supplies. Protecting water sources from contamination was paramount. A compromised water supply could cripple a defense faster than hunger. Stone-vaulted cellars were crucial for food preservation. Thick stone walls and underground locations provided insulation. Consistent, cool temperatures reduced spoilage rates. Cellars were ideal for aging cheese and storing ale. North-facing chambers minimized sun exposure, keeping rooms cooler. Cooler temperatures prevented insect infestation and mold growth. Proper storage safeguarded the castle's caloric reserves. The ability of a medieval castle garrison to endure a protracted siege often extended beyond its stored provisions and architectural defenses. For many defenders, the ultimate key to survival was the prospect of external assistance. Long sieges frequently became a desperate race against time, with the besieged hoping their supplies and resolve would outlast the attacker's determination or resources. The arrival of a friendly relief army, ready to break the blockade and scatter the enemy forces, was the most fervent wish of those trapped within the stone walls. This hope, however slim it might sometimes seem, could be a powerful motivator, fueling the garrison's will to resist even in the face of dwindling food and mounting despair. To summon this crucial aid, castle lords or commanders would undertake perilous measures. Brave and resourceful messengers were dispatched, often under the cover of darkness or through secret sallyports, tasked with slipping through the enemy's encircling lines. These missions were fraught with extreme danger. Discovery by enemy patrols almost certainly meant capture, torture for information, or summary execution. The messengers, frequently chosen for their loyalty, speed and knowledge of the local terrain, carried urgent pleas for help to allied nobles, regional overlords, or even the king himself. To incentivize such perilous journeys and the subsequent military campaigns, lords often vowed substantial rewards such as land, titles, or significant sums of money to anyone who could successfully break the siege. The mere possibility of relief arriving had a profound psychological impact on the besieged defenders. Even as daily rations grew smaller and the enemy's pressure increased, the belief that friendly forces were on their way could sustain morale. Soldiers would scan the horizon from the castle ramparts, anxiously looking for the telltale signs of an approaching army, distant dust clouds, the glint of sunlight on armor, or the fluttering banners of their allies. This shared hope created a sense of solidarity and purpose, encouraging them to hold out for just a little longer. News, even if just a rumor, that a messenger had successfully broken through could spread like wildfire, temporarily invigorating the weary defenders and steeling their resolve against surrender. Beyond the physical confrontations of siege warfare, a constant battle of wits and nerves played out between the besiegers and the besieged. Psychological warfare was a common and often crucial element of castle defense, particularly when material resources were stretched thin. The primary aim of these tactics was to mislead the enemy, to create an illusion of strength and preparedness that might not reflect the true situation within the walls. Defenders understood that if they could demoralize their attackers, make them doubt their chances of a swift victory, or force them into costly errors, they could significantly improve their own odds of survival. This shadow war relied on cunning, bluff, and a keen understanding of enemy psychology. Defenders employed a variety of visual deceptions to project an image of greater numbers and readiness. One common tactic was to light an excessive number of torches and bonfires along the castle walls at night. This created the impression of a much larger garrison than actually existed, or could even suggest that reinforcements had somehow managed to arrive undetected. Similarly, numerous banners and flags from different allied houses might be displayed, even if only a small contingent from each was present. Sometimes the same small groups of well-equipped soldiers would be marched visibly along different sections of the ramparts at intervals, hoping the enemy observers would count them multiple times, thereby overestimating the defenders' fighting strength. Auditory illusions and feigned activity also played a significant role in this deceptive arsenal. Defenders might deliberately create loud noises from within the castle, such as the clanging of armor, shouted commands, or the sounds of smithing and construction, to suggest a bustling, well-supplied and numerous force preparing for vigorous defense or even a counterattack. Mock sorties, where a small group of soldiers would burst out as if to attack before quickly retreating, could keep the besiegers on high alert, forcing them to expend energy and maintain a tighter, more stressful watch. Sometimes, defenders would make a great show of bringing non-existent supplies into the castle, perhaps carrying sacks filled with straw or earth, to trick enemy spies into believing their larders were still plentiful. Modern scholars work much like historical detectives. They piece together clues from centuries ago. Their goal is to understand medieval siege sustenance. This involves looking at different kinds of evidence. Each piece helps to build a clearer picture. It tells us how castles held out for so long. We learn about the food and the people. This research reveals incredible planning and foresight. It shows the detailed efforts made to survive. Understanding these methods is truly fascinating for historians. Medieval account books are a primary source of information. These were detailed financial records kept by castle officials. Stewards or clerks noted down all purchases and expenditures. They listed quantities of grain, meat, and ale bought. Inventories sometimes show what was in store at specific times. However, these records can be incomplete or hard to interpret. Not all castles kept such detailed books, or they haven't survived. Yet, where they exist, they offer invaluable direct insights. They show the flow of goods into the castle's larders. These accounts are windows into medieval logistical operations. Archaeological digs provide tangible physical evidence. Excavations of castle sites often unearth fascinating clues. The remains of vaulted cellars can indicate storage areas. Sometimes traces of ancient foodstuffs are found. These might include preserved grains, animal bones, or pottery. Rubbish pits, known as middens, are also treasure troves. They contain discarded items, including food remnants. This helps identify what people ate and in what quantities. Granary foundations can reveal their size and design. Archaeology makes the past feel very real and present. Through careful study, scholars can now estimate food needs. They have a good idea of what a besieged person required. We know that a well-supplied castle needed specific amounts. Roughly 6 to 8 pounds of grain per person per week was standard. This was the main source of calories for the defenders. To this, add about half a pound of cured meat daily. Each person also received around 2 pints of ale. Some cheese would supplement this basic diet. These figures are approximations based on available evidence. They show the basic rations for long-term survival. These individual needs quickly add up for a whole garrison. Consider a castle with 300 men inside its walls. To feed them for an entire year required immense planning. Using the estimates, about 25 tons of grain would be needed. This is a huge quantity requiring significant storage space. The castle's granaries had to be large and well protected. This calculation highlights the sheer scale of medieval logistics. It shows why stockpiling was so incredibly important. Simply having enough food was a major defensive strategy. Such foresight was essential for any successful long defense. The siege of Dunbar in 1338 offers a clear example. Scottish defenders there managed to endure for 7 months. This remarkable feat relied heavily on their stockpiled provisions. They had stores of dried barley, a hardy and versatile grain. Salted fish provided essential protein for the garrison. Hard cheese, which keeps well, was another key food item. Their granaries were ingeniously located in the stone-cooled church vault. This protected the grain from spoilage and enemy action. Dunbar shows how theory translated into practice. Their survival was a testament to good preparation. Medieval castles faced immense siege challenges. Surviving for months or even a year was not mere luck. It was the result of careful, deliberate planning. Vast stockpiles of essential grains formed the bedrock. Wheat, barley, and rye were gathered in huge amounts. This foresight provided the primary source of calories. It was the first line of defense against starvation. These reserves were a testament to medieval preparedness. They laid the groundwork for long-term resistance. Without them, no fortress could hope to endure for long. Preservation techniques were then absolutely crucial. They transformed perishable foods into lasting provisions. Meat from livestock was expertly salted and smoked. This created hams, bacon, and jerky that kept for months. Dairy, especially milk, was turned into durable cheese. Wheels of cheese aged slowly in cool castle cellars. These methods dramatically extended the available food supply. They ensured protein and fat remained in the diet. This ingenuity was vital for long-term sustenance. It turned fleeting abundance into a lasting resource. Meticulous management of these resources was paramount. Strict rationing ensured every mouthful was used wisely. Food was distributed according to need and status. Nothing could be wasted when survival was at stake. Detailed ledgers tracked every sack of flour and barrel of fish. Storekeepers practiced vigilant stock rotation as a rule. Older supplies were always consumed before newer ones. This prevented heartbreaking losses from spoilage or pests. Such discipline maximized the lifespan of all provisions. Order and control were essential in the face of scarcity. Castle architecture itself played a significant defensive role. It was designed to protect and preserve precious supplies. Deep wells and cisterns secured vital water sources. These were often located within the safest castle areas. Cool stone-vaulted cellars kept cheese and ale fresh. Granaries were built to be dry and rodent-proof. North-facing chambers avoided the sun's damaging heat. Even earthen pits helped store root vegetables longer. The very stones of the castle fought against decay. This intelligent design was integral to siege survival. Survival, however, hinged on more than just physical stores. The human element was equally critical for endurance. The prospect of outside relief often sustained weary garrisons. Hope for an allied army could bolster failing spirits. Lords dispatched brave messengers to summon this vital aid. These missions were perilous, a gamble for salvation. The belief in rescue could make defenders hold on. It provided a psychological lifeline against despair. This glimmer of hope fueled prolonged resistance daily. Without it, even well-stocked castles might fall sooner. Psychological warfare added another layer to castle defense. Defenders often used clever bluffs and deceptions. They aimed to mislead their enemies effectively. Extra torches at night suggested greater numbers. Loud noises might imply bustling activity and high morale. These tactics could make besiegers hesitant or overcautious. The goal was to buy precious, invaluable time. Such deceptions were a weapon of the weaker side. They showed ingenuity in the face of overwhelming odds. This mental battle was as important as physical defense. Ultimately, surviving a long siege was a complex equation. It required a powerful combination of many factors. Massive grain reserves provided the essential foundation. Thorough meat and dairy preservation extended these supplies. Tight, disciplined rationing ensured nothing was wasted. Strategic castle architecture protected food from spoilage. The hope of relief sustained morale through dark times. Clever bluffing could deceive and delay the enemy. No single strategy alone guaranteed success for defenders. It was this integrated blend that proved most effective. This remarkable fusion of strategies explains medieval resilience. It allowed some fortresses to defy starvation and attack. They held out for many months, sometimes nearly a full year. This endurance is a profound testament to careful planning. It speaks of the ingenuity and fortitude of medieval people. They understood the harsh realities of siege warfare. They prepared accordingly with impressive thoroughness. The legacy of their survival strategies continues to fascinate. These castles stand as monuments to human endurance. Their stories echo the courage to withstand the impossible.